Oh, that kind of makes your chest tight a little bit. Quite horrible. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. The day that I'm filming this, right now, it's November 9th, 2025, which means it's been 50 years since the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Which, if you don't know, I'll give you a little history lesson. At the time of launch in 1958, she was the largest ship of the Great Lakes, designed to the maximum size allowed for the St. Lawrence Seaway. This was a big ship. However, it did sink. On November 9th, 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald departed Superior, Wisconsin, near Duluth, under Captain Ernest M. McSorley, carrying about 26,000 tons of taconite ore pellets. On the night of November 10th, a severe storm struck Lake Superior, and the ship sank with the loss of all 29 crew members aboard. Extremely sad. A very tragic day in Canadian and American history. But then Gordon Lightfoot, the Canadian singer-songwriter, an absolute legend, creates this song that we're going to react to today, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. He writes this ballad in late 1975 after the ship sank, and it goes to #1 in Canada on the Billboard Top 100, and it reaches #2 in the United States in 1976. So this is a very well-liked song at the time, and it's carried through the generations, and we're celebrating it to this day. It's really a history lesson and also a great song, and I don't think we get many of those in 2025, so it's nice to go back and listen to some of the greats. This recommendation comes from one of my patrons on Patreon, so if you want your recommendations bumped up to the top of the list, check out Buy Me a Coffee. That's kind of like a tip jar recommendation hub, and then Patreon is where you can get bonus content, you have a say in the content that I make, and all that good stuff. So without further ado, let's dive right in.
The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. The legend lives on from the Chippewa down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi. The lake, it is said, never gives up the dead when the skies of November turn gloomy. With the load of iron ore, 26,000 tons more than the Edmund Fitzgerald weighed empty. That big ship and crew was a bound to be chewed when the gales of November came hurling. The ship was the pride of the American side, coming back from somewhere in Wisconsin. As the big freighters go, it was bigger than most, with the burned good captain well seasoned, concluding sometimes with a couple of steel pearls when they left fully loaded for Cleveland. Then later that night when the ship's bell rang, could it be the north wind they'd been feeling?
Wow. Beautiful. The lyrics here are really delicious. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at the lyrics as he's singing them, because they're really, I think, indicative of a true singer-songwriter, a true lyrical genius, if we're being completely honest. And if you go back and look at this sort of time in history of songwriters, you know, 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there's some absolute gems. And this Canadian, I don't know what genre you'd put it in, folk, I guess. It really tells a story. And the songs are quite lengthy because they tell a story. And there's a history lesson embedded in here. There's a reflection of Canadian culture. And it's interesting. And we're going to look at some of these lyrics too. But it's interesting how he's writing it from a Canadian perspective, looking at the United States. Like, just a quick example, when he sings, "The ship was the pride of the American side." It's a lake that lives in Canada and the United States. So there's a Canadian side and there's an American side. And he's clearly from the Canadian perspective. So that's kind of cool. And I think that's why Gordon Lightfoot is so, partially why he's so well known and so celebrated in Canada, is because he's a true Canadian champion. And that's what we love. And I try to be that on this channel too. And maybe I'll show quickly on the screen where Lake Superior is and roughly where the Edmund Fitzgerald sank, just so you can get a clear idea of where we are geographically. I want to hone in on some lyrics, and I'll replay the clip of him singing it so you can hear it. The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi.
The legend lives on from the Chippewa on down of the big lake they call Gitchagumi.
Now, that might be a lyric that doesn't make any sense to you. It doesn't make any sense to me. And if you didn't have the lyrics in front of you, you'd probably wonder what he's actually singing about. So Gitchagumi is the Ojibwe, which is Chippewa, name for Lake Superior, meaning Great Sea. So again, he's incorporating Canadian Indigenous culture into this song because that's a part of the Canadian culture, right? And so even incorporating that just shows the depth of thought that has gone into these lyrics. So I think if you bring in the historical significance, starting this piece off with an Indigenous theme and bringing Indigenous language into this song, I think he's further cementing it into this idea of folk and folklore and significant history, because Indigenous history is Canadian history. And he knew that when he wrote that lyric, he wouldn't have put that lyric in for no reason. So I think what that's helping contribute to is this idea that the Edmund Fitzgerald and the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald is very historically significant to Canadian and American culture. So it's really brilliant that he would put that in there. It's very Canadian to put that in there. The next lyric I want to highlight here, and I'll play it again. That good ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early.
That big ship and true was a bone to be chewed when the gales of November came early.
So bones to be chewed. What does that really mean? I think that shows us that nature is a devourer. That Mother Nature, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, how big your ship is. They said the same thing about the Titanic, right? Unsinkable ship, is that it doesn't discriminate. And if those gales in November come early, you better be ready for it, because if not, it'll chew you up. And I think you can probably tell by now, as we continue to listen to this song and its verses, is that he's a brilliant lyricist, and he's simply just telling a story, but doing it in such an articulate way that it really conjures up feeling. Like, I think if you live on the East Coast, or if you live in Canada and kind of further north, you understand what it means when the November winds or the November gales come early, because it's cold. Right now it's November 9th and it's snowing right now. And it's snowing pretty hard. So it's, snows and nasty winter wind can come early. Let's continue on. This is brilliant.
The wind and the wires made a tattletale sound, and a wave broke over the river. And every man knew, as the captain did too, it was the witch of November come stealing. The dawn came late and the breakfast hit the wood when the gales of November came slashing. And afternoon came, it was freezing rain, the face of a hurricane west wind. When the supper time came, the old cook came on deck saying, fellas, it's too rough to feed you. At 7 p.m. the main hatch we give in. He said, fellas, it's been good to know you. And the captain went in, he heard water coming in, and the big ship and crew was in peril. Then later that night, when his lights went out of sight, came the the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Wow. Let's pause right there. Oh my gosh. So what I'm noticing about the song too is because I haven't listened to it this closely before, looking at every single line, is that it's just the same repeated melody all over again, but it's just the lyrics are so good that it really pulls you in. And I love it makes it seem like, and this just goes to show how good he is, it makes it seem like he was on the ship. I don't think if I sang this song, it would have the same effect. There's just something about his voice too, which is very down to earth. It's very honest and natural and not very performative, really. He just sings it, and it's a very unique voice too. But it just makes it seem like he was there. I love the lines. The cook says, "It's too rough to feed you," and then the next line, basically, the cook is saying, "It's been good to know you." I think it captures too, and you can feel free to disagree with me on this, but I know, being from the East Coast of Canada, I know quite a lot of sea people and fishermen and sailors and all of that. And they have a very positive attitude a lot of the time. And maybe it's just an East Coast thing, but they're very chipper and they're funny and they don't take things too seriously. So I think those lines, "It's been good to know ya," just so casual, right? I think is a pretty accurate reflection on not necessarily how those sailors were reacting at the time, but just the sort of general feeling with fishermen and sailors is that, they're just sort of, they don't take anything too seriously. And they'd say something like that. "It's good. Been good to know you." And the other thing lyrically that I think he's doing really well is he's setting up, he's describing so well the feeling of the weather and just the overall atmosphere. Freezing rain, hurricane-like winds. I think we all know what that means and what that feels like, but just the biting cold. If it's too rough to feed you, if it's too rough to eat, then the ship is just going back and forth and back and forth. So he's doing a really great job of describing the atmosphere so that we can feel part of it. It's very haunting, and maybe the melody is just consistent. It doesn't change much. We're in a 6/8, 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5, which means we have 6 beats per measure, and you can hear him counting in 1 2 3 4 5 6 at the beginning, and then the 8th note gets a beat. So it's just this real sway back and forth, and I think that is really capturing this idea of a ship swinging back and forth, just swaying 1 2 3 4 5 6. Very. You can get seasick just thinking about it.
Does anyone know if the love of God knows when the waves turn the minutes to hours?
What a great line.
The searchers all say that it made Whitefish Bay if they'd put 15 more miles behind her. They might have split up, or they might have capsized. They may have broke Cape and took water. And all that remains is the faces and the names of the wives and the sons and the daughters. Sings in the rooms of their ice-water mansion. Old Michigan steams like a young man's dreams. The islands and bays are for sportsmen. And farther below Lake Ontario takes in what Lake Erie can center. And the iron boats go as the mariners all go with the gales of November, remember.
Some of the greatest lines in a song that I've ever heard. One that really jumped out to me. I'm going line by line. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? That just gives me goosebumps. Ugh. That just sort of makes you feel sick too. Because you can imagine that, I think, if you can go deep in your brain, when the waves turn the minutes to hours. Like, what a horrible agony of a shipwreck, of drowning, just that awful, awful feeling of being trapped. Ugh, that kind of makes your chest tight a little bit. Quite horrible. And just again, he's done such a great job of describing the setting and using descriptors and adjectives and everything to capture the setting and the context so we can make sense of it. But then that line goes beyond that, and it describes the emotion. Let me read it again. Does anyone know where the love of God goes when the waves turn the minutes to hours? That makes you think. Yeah. Ugh. Haunting. And he does a great job of just, the poetic imagery here too. There's poetic imagery, then there's some literal imagery, and he clearly knows his stuff because he's describing the different parts of the lake and how they work and how they operate. So it's a real, true, and honest description of what is going on and how geographically it's all set up. Okay, let's get ready for this final verse here.
Thank you very kindly. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Wow. I love his demeanor throughout this too. And you think the song was written in the 70s, and he's performing this in 2000s, or in the year 2000. So that's a long time to be performing this. And I'm sure he performed it many, many times after this performance too. But yet his demeanor was very neutral, because at the end of the day, this is a very, very tragic story. And this is a tragic song. And I think the song perfectly captures musically. We haven't really talked much about the musical side of things, mostly looking at the lyrics for obvious reasons. It's just a lyrical masterpiece. But the demeanor and the tone is just neutral, because again, this is a tragedy, and it's not upbeat, and it's also not like a sad funeral march. It's perfectly in the middle, because it captures the gravity of the situation, the tragedy, the truth and honesty of the ocean, or not the ocean, but of a great lake, of a great body of water, and Mother Nature in general, how she doesn't discriminate against who she takes. And it doesn't matter what resources you have. You have the biggest ship in the Great Lakes, literally the biggest ship that could possibly be made to fit into the systems. Things can go horribly wrong. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, vocally, we haven't really talked much vocally. I'm going to do another video where I listen to the studio recording of him singing this, Gordon Lightfoot, but very plain singing. Again, it suits the song so well. Keep it simple, stupid. That should be the message with all singing. Keep it simple. And when you have lyrics like this, you have to let them speak for themselves. Oftentimes when I'm doing, even if I'm doing an opera or if I'm singing a classical piece, Schubert even, I will say, and I have to say it to myself, let the composer do the work. Let the music speak for itself. This is beautifully written music. And sometimes you just have to take a back seat as a vocalist and let the music just flow. Let the song and the lyrics just happen. Now for Gordon Lightfoot, the same thing. He happens to be the songwriter, but he's just going to let the story play out. He's going to let this tale speak for itself because it's very, very heavy stuff. So vocally, he doesn't do too much. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. Sounds really good. I've only ever heard the studio recording of this. I've never seen him live. I've never seen a live performance of this before. And it sounds very similar to that original recording. One thing that I did find in my research, I don't remember exactly where it is in the lyrics, but I know he did change some of the lyrics because they had discovered later on that the ship sank for a different reason. I think he had, I forget what he had, but he had something in the original lyrics that said it sank because of one way, or there was one cause that made it sink. And then he later changed the lyrics once they learned a little bit more about how this tragedy came to be. So that's really great on his part, right? He's paying attention. He realizes the importance of this story, and he wants to be as historically accurate as possible. He doesn't want to create any rumors or any spread misinformation in his song. It is a history lesson. And that's a beautiful thing. A legendary performance by a legendary performer performing a legendary song. This is just the perfect balance of performance and songwriting and really storytelling. I think more songs these days that are being written, they need to tell more of a story because we don't have songs like this anymore. We don't have lyricists like Gordon Lightfoot, and I really, really wish we did. Fantastic, haunting performance. We're going to end this video here. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to check out some of the videos popping up on your screen and stay tuned for another reaction of the studio recording of Gordon Lightfoot's The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Thank you very much. Don't forget to check out Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon, and I'll see you in the next video.